The house felt unusually silent as I walked through the front door, my parents' departure still fresh in my mind. They had left for a weekend getaway, leaving me home alone for the first time. At 16, the idea of having the house to myself was exciting. Little did I know, the thrill would soon turn into an indescribable horror. As the evening descended, I busied myself with typical teenage activities. I ordered pizza, watched movies, and indulged in the solitude. The dim glow of the television flickered across the living room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The house, normally vibrant and filled with laughter, now seemed to echo with a haunting emptiness. Around midnight, I decided to retire to my room. The creaking stairs beneath my weight sent shivers down my spine, but I dismissed them as mere products of an old house settling. My parents had always assured me that there was nothing to fear in our home. In my room, the soft glow of the nightlight illuminated familiar surroundings, yet the silence felt oppressive. The occasional creaks and groans of the house seemed louder in the stillness of the night. I shook off the unease, attributing it to the novelty of being alone. As I settled into bed, I heard a faint scratching sound outside my window. It was rhythmic, like the claws of some creature scraping against the glass. My heart quickened, and I peered through the curtains. Moonlight barely penetrated the darkness, revealing only the vague outlines of the backyard. I convinced myself it was a tree branch or some nocturnal animal, trying to alleviate the growing sense of unease. Turning away from the window, I pulled the covers tightly around me, attempting to drown out the ominous sounds. Just as I began to drift into a restless sleep, a sudden crash echoed from downstairs. I jolted upright, my senses on high alert. The house that had been silent was now filled with strange noises. Fear settled in my chest, but I couldn't dismiss it as mere paranoia. The sounds were real, and they were coming from within the house. Summoning my courage, I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed and crept down the stairs. The air felt thick with tension as I descended into the unknown. The dim light from the moon cast long shadows across the hallway, distorting familiar objects into sinister shapes. A flicker of movement caught my eye in the living room. My breath caught in my throat as I saw a figure standing in the shadows. Panic surged through me, and I raised the bat, ready to defend myself. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice quivering. The figure remained motionless, shrouded in darkness. I took a step forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. As I approached, the features of the intruder became clearer. It was a man, his face obscured by the hood of a tattered jacket. "I'm armed! Get out of my house!" I shouted, my voice wavering. The intruder slowly turned to face me, revealing vacant eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the man wasn't holding any weapons. He simply stood there, a silent and unsettling presence. Without warning, he lunged towards me. Instinct took over as I swung the bat with all my strength, connecting with a sickening thud. The intruder crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. Fear and adrenaline surged through me as I backed away, the bat still clenched in my trembling hands. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Was this a random intruder, or was there something more sinister at play? The unanswered questions only fueled my anxiety. I reached for my phone to call the police, but the screen remained dark. Panic set in as I realized the power was out. The house, once a place of comfort, had transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and uncertainty. With cautious steps, I made my way to the front door, desperate to escape the nightmare unfolding within my home. As I reached for the doorknob, a guttural growl emanated from behind me. I turned to see the intruder, his eyes now glowing with an otherworldly malevolence. The air turned frigid as a shadowy mist enveloped the figure. I stumbled backward, my mind unable to comprehend the supernatural horror before me. The man's form twisted and contorted, morphing into a grotesque, otherworldly creature. I fled through the front door, the night air biting at my skin. The once familiar neighborhood seemed alien and foreboding. Desperation consumed me as I ran, my eyes darting around for any sign of help. The creature emerged from the house, its inhuman howl echoing through the night. It pursued me with unnatural speed, its presence sending a shiver down my spine. The very essence of the creature seemed to warp reality, distorting the world around it. I sprinted through the deserted streets, my breaths ragged and labored. My only hope was to find refuge, to escape the clutches of the supernatural entity that had invaded my home. As I rounded a corner, I stumbled upon a flickering street lamp. revealing a decrepit, abandoned building ahead. Without a second thought, I burst through the creaking door and found myself in a dilapidated hallway. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the silence within the building was as suffocating as the terror outside. I cautiously explored the dimly lit corridors, my ears strained for any sign of the creature. As I moved deeper into the building, the walls seemed to close in on me, and the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. I stumbled upon a room at the end of a narrow hallway, its door barely hanging on its hinges. The room was filled with ancient furniture covered in dusty sheets. A single, flickering bulb cast long shadows that danced along the peeling wallpaper. In the center of the room, I discovered an old, ornate mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but something was off. The room behind me seemed to stretch into an infinite abyss, a distorted and nightmarish version of reality. As I gazed into the mirror, the air grew colder, and the oppressive silence was shattered by a haunting whisper. The voice seemed to emanate from the depths of the mirror, a spectral presence reaching out from another realm. "You cannot escape," it murmured, the words echoing in the desolate room. Dread washed over me as I realized the malevolent force that had invaded my home was not bound by the physical world. It existed beyond the realms of reason, a dark entity that defied comprehension. I stumbled back, my heart pounding with fear. The room seemed to warp and twist, and the mirror became a gateway to a nightmarish dimension. I was trapped, caught between the terror that pursued me and the eldritch force that lurked within the mirror. In that surreal and haunting moment, I understood that the horrors I faced transcended the boundaries of the natural world. The malevolent force, unleashed by some unknown darkness, had turned my home into a realm of nightmares. As the whispers grew louder and the shadows deepened, I braced myself for the unknown horrors that awaited within the distorted reflections of that accursed mirror. The thin veil between reality and the supernatural had been torn, and I was left to navigate the twisted corridors of a nightmare that defied all logic and reason. And so, in the silence of that forsaken building, I faced a darkness that had consumed my home, praying that I would find a way to escape the clutches of the malevolent force that had turned a simple night alone into a descent into madness.